am so thrilled that you are doing this about Shirley Chisholm, because she really is one of the great American Gothic leaders. She's just phenomenal. And we just can't forget her because she was such an important role model. I have always cared so much about women's history and been so frustrated that no one seems to really know much about women's history. I find out even in a NOW meeting, I start talking about prominent women in history and what they did, and I find people taking notes. So people just don't know. And the first time I really realized how serious this was I had gotten elected to Congress, and Katharine Graham, who owns the Washington Post, and Jacqueline Kennedy invited me to dinner at Katharine Graham's house. So I thought, well, this is pretty important. Well, let me tell you what it was about. They had given me some little rinky-dink committee dealing with holidays and special days, but they were getting ready for the bicentennial in 1976. So it was a little more important than it normally was. And all this stuff had come along, and I had just passed it out, gotten it through the House without thinking two wits about it. It all made sense to me. It didn't occur to me that it was even controversial. Well, it hit the Senate, and the Senate went crazy. Here's what it was. Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis had edited a book called Remember the Ladies. For those of you who know women's history, Remember the Ladies was wonderful John Adams' wife, Abigail, writing to him when they were doing the Constitution. And of course he wrote back and said, forget it, Abigail. But she had called it Remember the Ladies, and she had done all this incredible research about women in American history. There were things about, you know, Martha Washington had spent all 4 winters with the Continental Army. Somehow we always pictured her at home at Mount Vernon doing needlepoint, you know, taking care of the fire and all that. And when it was over, George Washington went to the Continental Congress and insisted they pay her for it, because he said literally she was the spark plug that kept the troops from leaving and so on. So it was all sorts of stories like this. Okay, she wanted that to be an official book of the bicentennial. Well, why wouldn't you? You know, I mean, and there were that was the main thing. The boys said no. And I will never forget sitting at the table thinking, what am I even doing in this town? Here are these male senators saying no to the 2 most powerful women in the city. And they finally, by dessert, came up with a great compromise. And that was, they explained to us over and over again that what they really had envisioned, what they had envisioned for women in the bicentennial was lots of garden plantings and tulip bulbs and things. And we all said, well, you know, we're all for that, but why can't we have the book too? I mean, you know, the book is done, it's ready. So their final compromise was they would agree to allow it to be in the USIA libraries overseas as part of the bicentennial, but not here. So that's why none of you have ever seen the book. So, I mean, you know, okay, 76, here we are, 2008. People still don't know women's history.